Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2, episode number 24 total of the VYPEU podcast. We are back 2 weeks in a row here to start off the season. I'm Will Turbuff, joined by Ashton Lux and Ella Hestan. Guys, it is real. Texas high school football season is officially upon us. Games will start tomorrow on Thursday. It's been 222 days since we saw the 6A D1 championship between Westlake and Southlake Carroll. So we're finally here, guys. How excited are you?
Me personally, I'm super pumped, man. Obviously, me covering Bridgeland last year, and now I'll be covering Tomball. The culture is just a little bit different, and this being my second year in Texas high school football now, it's just being able to redo it all and just go through a whole another year. It's super exciting, and like I said, I'm super pumped to cover as many games as I can this week.
Same. I'm really excited to get football back. It's going to be a great season. There's some great games happening this weekend and some great games scheduled for the future, but it's been a long time since we've seen a good Texas high school football game, so it's good to be getting those back. We love those Friday night lights.
Yeah, and these early week matchups are some of the most fun. They're all non-district games. The three of us will all be going to at least one game this weekend, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But VYPE has been spotlighting some of the districts in the Houston area, so let's go ahead and touch on those. And Ella, the first one that we're going to talk about is special to you and I because it's 6A District 23. So after putting up a really impressive record in 2020, 10-1 for Pearland Dawson, they look like they were going to become the real kings of the rig over there in Pearland. However, they've lost all but 5 starters, and they're going to have an uphill battle if they want to go back-to-back. So, Ella, I'm going to ask you this question, and Ashton, feel free to jump in. With top-tier talent coming from the forefront, with A-Leaf Taylor and A-Leaf Hastings as well, will the 4 that we saw in the playoffs last year, which was Dawson, Pearland, Shadow Creek, and Strake Jesuit, will those 4 teams all make the playoffs here in 2021?
It's going to be close. I think the finishings will definitely be different with the talent that's moved around. I don't think you're going to see Dawson in first, maybe Pearland in second or first, and Shadow Creek, I think, will be in there, but Strake is a little iffy. I think you might see an A-Leaf school end up in the playoffs this year, but it's going to shake around. It's not going to be like it was last year. It's going to change because of the new talent. So Dawson, I think, still makes playoffs as well as Pearland and Shadow Creek. Strake is up for grabs as well. So A-Leaf Taylor or Hastings might sneak in there. You never know. So.
Obviously, like you said, with Dawson being the kings of the rig and with them beating Pearland last year, blowing out A-Leaf Taylor, and I'm sorry to say, Will, blowing out Jesuit last year. And even for you, Ella, the game against Shadow Creek and Dawson was good last year going into overtime with Dawson coming up on top. Losing all but 5 starters is still very tough and going to be an uphill battle, like you said, Will. But for me, I still think Dawson's going to be in there because junior – obviously, last year's newcomer, junior Colin Johnson, being able to develop over the summer, as well as, excuse me if I pronounce his last name wrong, but Ashton Stroman returning gives him an edge because he'll no longer be losing touches to those older guys. So like you said, I think those 4 teams will stay. And I'm sorry to say it, Will, but I think Jesuit's up for grabs as well.
Yeah, as much as I'd love to root for the Crusaders this year, and they have a really great team. Bryce Fusick will be the new quarterback. He's a junior. Generally that team has a senior quarterback, but they've seen a lot of talent in this guy. He's going to lead them. It'll be really interesting. A-Leaf Taylor is a team that we don't look at in 6A 23, but they've got a new quarterback as well. I believe Chase Jenkins, who was starting at a private school last year, he was starting for Episcopal, and he may be starting at A-Leaf Taylor this year. That's a team that I've been looking at to kind of break out. They've got a Tyler King Cole, I believe, who is one of the top receivers in the state, and then Hastings, who I talked about on last week's show. They've got a lot of great talent. So I do think that we'll see Dawson, Pearland, and Shadow Creek. And that last spot right there, the 4th, 5th, and 6th teams in District 23, it's going to be really close. It'll probably come down to one of those last couple games. So let's shift from 6A to 5A. The 5A team that you're going to hear about the most this year is the Fort Bend Marshall Buffaloes. It seems like they're going to be the top dogs in the Houston area. They have one of the best receiving duos in the state, maybe the best. Chris Marshall, who just turned to football about a year ago after being, one of the best basketball prospects in the state. And now he's got offers from everywhere in both states, in both sports. And he'll be with Jaden Johnson. And then guys like Adari Halsey, Chris Stevens, Zachary Chapman will hold it down on defense. Marshall wasn't able to win a championship last year. Will they take the 5A D2 crown this year, or will other teams like Manville or Aledo that we think of as premier teams in that section take it this year?
I think that all three of us can agree when you have two guys like four-star Chris Marshall, like you said, who just switched to football. And let's talk about that for a second. Him being able to come from an EYBL season with JL3 going back into football is just amazing. It just shows the type of athlete he is. As well as three-star Jaden Johnson, more times than not will put you ahead of other teams offensively. But also for the Buffaloes on the defensive side, and excuse me if I pronounce his name wrong, R.D. Halsey, Chris Stevens, and three-star Zachary Chapman give you double the edge over more of the teams than not. For me personally, I think the deciding factor for Fort Bend Marshall is not whether Manville or Aledo comes and beat them. It's going to be whether or not junior quarterback Jacoby Banks is able to step up. I think him being behind Ronald Harvey, who went for almost 2,000 yards as well as 28 touchdowns, is going to give him the experience and that he needs to be able to lead them to a championship this year. But I also am a huge fan of Jacoby because he brings a new flair to the team of being a dual threat quarterback, which they never had in the past.
They're definitely a stacked team, offensively and defensively. Like, they've got weapons and they've got the talent. They've also got the coaching. They're going to be a great team this year, and they're definitely going to make it deep into the playoffs. They've been within the grasp of this state championship for a while now, and I think all of those guys, you're coming up on a graduating class that has been to that big stage several times and has just lost it. So I think that this graduating class is definitely going to want it really bad to finish out their senior year with a state championship. Aledo is a great team, and you might see them in the championship, and it'll be a great game. But that's up for grabs. As Manville, I think, might actually end up in D1 this year. So you won't see a Marshall-Manville meetup, but Manville's also a very stacked team. I think you can expect them to go far in the 5A D1 with, like, running back Ty Harris and a really strong quarterback. Like, they've got a great shot at playoffs, but the Buffs are definitely going to make a deep run with these offensive and defensive weapons. So you can expect some great things from this team this season, and we'll definitely be keeping up with them.
Yeah, the Buffs are going to make a deep run. And based on what Ashton said a minute ago and what I'm about to say, I think the VYPEU podcast are really big fans of Jacoby Banks. This guy not only can play quarterback, but he can play slot receiver, and that's where he's getting a lot of attention from on the recruiting scene. He's considered an amazing prospect, not only as a quarterback, but as a receiver. But when you're playing behind Chris Marshall and Jaden Johnson, it's hard to get in there. So I think Marshall will probably win a state championship this year. With the talent they have, it would be very hard to see anything else. So we went to 6A to 5A and now back to 6A. Our guest this week is Jonah Wilson. He's playing in District 14, 6A, and VYPE has said that this is one of the most interesting districts in all of the area. 3 of VYPE's top 26A teams will be vying for a district title, and Spring looks to repeat after that crazy finish with the Hail Mary in 2020. So we've got Spring, we've got Westfield, both those teams led by elite quarterbacks in Bishop Davenport and Cardell Williams. And then there's Dekaney. Dekaney has a lot of question marks this year. So Ella, Ashton, which of those 3 teams do you think is going to win the 14 6A district championship this year?
With someone like Bishop Davenport in the shotgun, it is very hard to lose, especially coming off the season he just had where he threw for almost 3,500 yards, 36 touchdowns, as well as 700 yards and 7 more rushing touchdowns. I think it's very easy to say that Spring is going to have a very good year. Obviously, you picked them to be one of your sleepers, Will. I think it's just going to be very hard for them to lose, as well Westfield with Cardell Williams, who as well came off a huge year with almost 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns. It'll be hard to lose. Personally, I think it's going to be a shootout between Spring and Westfield due to Dekaney's senior quarterback, Dalen Williams, graduating and now going on to play for Coach Blaine Morgan over at Lamar University.
I agree that it's definitely going to come down between Spring and Westfield, with Dekaney losing that quarterback. And, when you asked this question, Will, I did think about last week when you picked them as your state choice. And, that's just, I think we can manifest that Spring is going to have this victory and go far, because they're definitely a great team with Bishop Davenport, and they're going to go far. They're going to go to the playoffs. So I think that they have a good shot at winning this district and going far like you hope they will.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and double down on that. This is episode 2 of the new season. I'll say it again. Spring will win a 6A championship this year. They've got the talent. They'll do it. So not only will they win 14-6A, they'll go on and probably win 6A D2 in late December. So we talked about Dekaney, and that leads us into our interview this week with Dekaney wide receiver, quarterback turned wide receiver, Jonah Wilson. So let's hand it over to that. All right, and now I am here with Jonah Wilson from the class of 2023, a wide receiver from Dekaney High School. Jonah, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you on. Season starting up in just a couple days now. I'm sure you're extremely excited for that. So what has the entire off season been like for you?
Just getting those guys ready, stepping up, being a leader, just getting my team ready to what's prepared, about to happen. A lot of young talent, but we're going to be all right.
Yeah, a lot of young talent. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But even before you started practicing with the team, you were practicing with Storm 7-on-7. And they're a big team this year. So tell me about some of the relationships you got to develop with them.
They helped. I got a chance to play with some of the best players in the nation, man. So it really helped me a lot. I got to catch some passes from Connor Wigman, got to play on the same team as Harold Perkins. So just being able to play on the same field as them and just practice with those type of players and stuff, it made me better.
Yeah, so what do you think your biggest takeaway from playing with big stars like that and going around the whole circuit with them was?
It made me step my game up more, to show that I can play on a big level as well as they can. Just improving, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've emerged as one of the top wide receivers in your class. You've gotten offers from LSU, A&M, Arkansas. So when did the whole recruitment process kind of start?
It started actually after Bridgeland, really. After third round playoff game. Really, that's when colleges started to notice me.
Yeah, and
got my first offer.
We mentioned
A&M.
3
offers in the same day. Yep.
We mentioned A&M, and you also had the connection when you played against Connor Wigman, and then you played with him, and he's committed to A&M, and he's a big recruiter. Has he talked to you at all about potentially committing there?
Nah, we just talk whenever we play, really, but we don't really talk about it. Just handle business, do what we got to do, really.
All right, cool. So Texas A&M, it's one of the most successful programs in the country, and they offer you first. So what went into that, and what kind of surprise was it to you that they were the first ones to call?
It blew my mind. Like, I couldn't really even believe that they called for me. So I was just blessed to be in that position to receive that call for me.
Yeah, absolutely blessed to be in that decision. And this is just months after you decide that you're going to play receiver, do what the team needs you to do. So what went into that decision to convert to a receiver from a QB? I seen how good I was at receiver, and then I just felt more comfortable. So I would just stay out there and just help my team more. Yeah, absolutely. And there's potentially a few question marks at the QB position this year, and you can kind of touch on that. But if the opportunity presented itself, would you be willing to go play quarterback again?
Yes, I don't need to anymore, but yes, if I have to, whatever it takes to help my team win, do it.
So right there, who's the guy this year for Dekaney? Who's going to be playing quarterback for them?
We have Dekaney Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks in the 23.
One of the best quarterbacks. That's a big statement right there.
One of the best quarterbacks.
How have you meshed with him in the offseason so far, and what kind of relationship do you have with him?
After our first day, just getting to know each other, I knew he was the one after the first day. I love the way he threw me the ball, and it was just similar to he just know what area I wanted in and all that. So I was just like, I roll with him. Love his character. He's a great person in the locker room. Just what we need.
Yeah, we'd love to hear when guys talk about character, It's something. It's going to be a grueling season this year, it looks like, and that is one of the most important things if you want to be successful. And last year, you guys were really successful. You made it to the playoffs. You beat Willis, and then you played in one of the most exciting high school football games, probably in the nation for 2020. Tell me about the playoff atmosphere, how it started off against Willis, and then what that turned into against Bridgeland.
I was on a roll playoff game. I came out early in the first quarter and scored a 53-yard touchdown, I think. Came out early, and so it just being in that playoff, it was a lot of people. It was packed. Just being there, I love the atmosphere. I love being there. Yeah.
So you come in against Bridgeland. You're pretty big underdogs. A lot of people had them even, going all the way to state. They didn't end up doing that. And you guys took them to 4 overtimes. So what was the message the coach was giving you guys? I know probably a few different people in your ear during that game. But what was the mentality just as you keep going, halftime is close, you go past regulation and then every single overtime just keeps going further and further. So what was the message right there?
He just pulled us all in. He said, if you give us their, if everybody gives their all, then we're going to walk out of here with a happy ending. Yeah. All we can do is just go out there and give it our all. We know we did our best, but, things like that happen, but we know what we did.
Yeah, you gave it your all, obviously 4 overtimes against one of the best teams in the state. And you also came a little bit short in district matchup, but a little bit earlier on we were talking about how interesting your district is this year with Westfield and Spring. You finished in 3rd last year. What do you think this team, what stands out about the 2021 team that they can win?
We just have to be humble, just take it one game at a time. Really don't worry about what's on the schedule, just what's for that week. And we just practice hard every day and just take it one day at a time. We're going to be all right.
So what do you think you've learned the most about the teams in the district, playing against them last year? What do you think some of their weaknesses are and what strength does this team have?
Just going to be humble about this situation, but really just going to be humble, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're opening.
You just gotta be there. You gotta be there to see it, man. I can't even tell you what's gonna happen. You just gotta be there.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to be there to see it. I'll see you in a couple weeks against my school, Strict Jesuit. So really looking forward to that. And then you open this week against Klein Oak. So I know there's been a few concerns. COVID's still in the air. You guys are really recovering from that. So tell me about what practices have been like in the last few weeks.
We just really trying to get ready to get all these guys tempo for varsity football, 14, 6A. It just all moves fast. So we just go in every day, go hard, go fast. So just trying to get everybody ready for these real game situations.
And if you had one word to describe Dekaney this year, what would it be?
We too deep.
Too deep. There we go. Well, Jonah, we really appreciate having you on. Looking at seeing you really soon, and good luck this season.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Well, once again, we want to thank Jonah Wilson for coming on this week. Make sure to check him out as he starts his season off this Thursday, which is tomorrow now. So now we've been talking about football all week, and Ella, we're going to talk about the sports that you're great in and you love talking about. So let's get some volleyball started.
Yes, I'm excited to finally talk about some volleyball. With season starting, we're about 3 weeks into the season now. There's a bunch of great tournament play happening, some great games in preseason, and there's some obvious powerhouses already developing. So first off, the Woodlands is a dominating force right now in 6A, currently undefeated with an 18-0 record. Now they secured 2 tournament wins, one at the John Turner Classic, beating Ridgepoint in the championship, and another this past weekend at the Willowbrook Varsity Tournament. And I actually have a quote from an opposing player who's faced them in the Willowbrook Tournament that they are absolutely unbelievable this year, that this is a team that you have to watch because they are going to go far, and they are definitely going to make an appearance deep in the playoffs. Now, on the other end, 5A, in 5A, Barbers Hill is dominating right now with only 1 loss under their belt. to Manville in the championship of the Dickinson tournament that occurred this past weekend. In that same tournament, they took out notorious 5A powerhouse Friendswood. So Barbers Hill is the up-and-coming, like, they're going to be amazing in 5A this year. They're killing it right now, and I think we can expect this trend to continue with setter Kelsey Wingo and junior middle blocker Avery Wilkes. Like, they're going to kill it. Now, going a little bit backwards, back to the Woodlands, they have some incredible stats being put up right now with junior Claire DeWine. She has 201 assists, 21 aces, 112 digs, and 141 kills, all in 18 games. Now, senior Reagan Watley, she's looking at 114 kills right now with freshman Ella Lewis with 126. Those are very impressive numbers for only 18 games. Like, they are absolutely killing it right now. Barbers Hill is doing the same with just as impressive stats. And they are definitely the two teams to pay attention to as we approach the start of district play in a few weeks. So other big 6A teams to watch include Dawson and Ridgepoint, whose programs have developed this tradition of winning, as well as Clear Springs, who made a deep run into the playoffs last year. They were an incredible team last year. They have a lot of talent returning. They're going to be great as well. I think that all three of those 6A teams are going to make deep playoff runs and be just great this year. Like, they are going to have several victories. I don't expect their losses to increase by a big margin from now to the start of playoffs. Now, reigning state champs, Seven Lakes, they've lost their star outside Allie Batenhorst to Nebraska, who was a senior last year, and they're not quite the same team. But the last Batenhorst sister, Casey, who's the setter, is remaining, and she brings a lot of leadership to the team, and she is truly one of the biggest players for the Spartans, and they've garnered big wins over Fulshire and Stratford. So volleyball is killing it right now. All of these teams are doing great. So, boys, any predictions for the state tournament after these first few weeks?
Well, yeah, it looks like Seven Lakes has got a great team again. The Batenhorst sisters, just a really good story. Casey is on the cover of the VYPE volleyball preview this year, block party. Make sure to check that out. So I think they'll get it. I'm assuming that Fulshire will turn it around at some point in the next few weeks. And Ella, I think Shadow Creek is turning up to be pretty good this year. Tell me about how your season is going.
We had a bit of a rough start to begin with because we only have, I think, 7 returners from varsity last year with only 4 starters. So we've got a bunch of new talent coming in. We have 2 new setters and a freshman middle, Mackenzie Collins, who's absolutely killing it right now. But we're a pretty new team. We're still developing our chemistry, but we really came out of our shell this past weekend and are on a winning streak right now. So it's looking good, and I'm really excited for the season. Like, it's going to be great.
Well, Ella, we know you have us covered for volleyball. It looks like it's going to be a great season. A lot of really exciting teams that we've already seen so far. I've had a chance to cover a couple of them through VYPE Live. But football season is upon us, like I said a little bit earlier on. So I will be at the Strike Jesuit Strike Jesuit Westfield opener on Friday. How about you guys? What are your plans for the weekend?
So for me personally, being a Tomball native now, I will be covering the opening game for Tomball against Willis this Friday at Willis. And depending on, obviously with the Brisbane Clan Cane game this Saturday, depending on the ESPN stuff that's going on that they'll be there covering, I should be able to cover that game Saturday at 8 o'clock as well.
I'll definitely be at the Shadow Creek North Shore game Friday night. I don't know if I'll cover much of it, but I'm excited to see that being played and get to talk about it next week.
Well, it is the most wonderful time of the year. Football's starting, volleyball's already going. We had a great week here on the VYPEU podcast. We'll see you next week, but make sure to stick around, come back at noon for the St. Pius Coaches Show with Greg Cranfill. So make sure to stick around right now for that. For Ella Heston, Ashton Lux, I'm Will Turboff. We'll see you next time.